Yeah, so call this meeting order. I don't even have the agenda in front of me. I have 2 agenda items on there. Most importantly, we have gotten up to my understanding, I don't know about Dave and lighting, but we've gotten all of our vendors paid. And that's very important to me that this was something that we had cleared up. And so moving forward, the only people that we haven't paid is, some promised money that we were gonna put to Jackie. So, that's what the importance of this meeting is today, to figure out what they're issuing us is a 2-month temporary service agreement with Jackie, that I'm hoping that we can finalize today. And then hopefully, get an invoice from Becky and then we can get that paid out. And then that's kind of the last on our list. We still have to work on the RFP moving forward with, an organization to do administrative tasks. And we do need an RFP yet with landscaping, but, this is kind of the last of it. So the second agenda item is if we can move forward and talk just a little bit about what our RFP with an organization would look like, and that's why we have Julia's. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but Julia got this RFP submitted, posted, so it's up for bid. So yeah, that's exciting.
I have a question, hopefully you guys can answer. So she mentioned that landscape needs an RFP. Depending on how fast the RFP process goes for hiring an organization, if we hire somebody to manage our bid through the RFP process, then wouldn't that eliminate the need for landscaping to have an RFP because they can hire people underneath them?
Depends on what items are included in the RFP. My understanding from the South Barstow Full Bid Board, they did not want to do an RFP for everything. They just want to do a few, 2 or 3 things. So I think it depends on what is decided to be done.
Yeah, well, and I would say it's right, maybe I thought it was a little confusing too. Like we had talked about doing the similar thing to what North Barstow is doing. I don't know, maybe Dave was one that wanted to hold off a little bit and only do certain tasks, so work for him. I think we're here today that we can make that call.
And
so.
well, then we'd have to take it to the full board then, you're saying
Right.
no.
It
We
would
decide
have to go
here.
back if you decide to do everything, being
Yeah.
they did agree that a couple could be done. I don't know that if there was just a couple done, that it would need to go back to.
Was there an official motion on?
Do you have the minutes?
What was the money?
I will pull.
We didn't make a motion on anything in regards to the RFP.
But the motions were made on you being able to sign the contract, and that's the exact team.
And it was my understanding that I can come up with an RFP without full board approval. It's only when we get to
Right, but I think
choosing
you still need to follow the direction that they gave.
But it wasn't a motion or anything.
So you got,
Yeah, we got it.
let's just wait till
Can we
Rebecca
give me a
gets some
second to
minutes
do
here.
this?
And it is jumping us a little ahead. And
Right, well, yes, I think
But,
so, but
yeah.
they're gonna play off of each other, I believe.
Mhm.
Right? I would guess.
And not that we're here to talk about Lily B and RFP, this is just for administrative tasks.
Right, I guess the only reason I bring it up is because I don't want to have to go through or making an RFC here and then we're gonna turn it over to somebody and then all the work is for naught. We've been doing enough other stuff without having RFP, it's not gonna be used.
Okay, so we've got a couple of things at play here. So
Okay.
I will start with the overall contracts. So there was a motion made for bidder committee chair to enter into agreements and authorize payments subject to the approved budget, which almost did not pass. It passed 5-4. So that's where we're saying,
The 5-4 was the, snow removal.
Maybe that's too.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no,
That was not, that was.
I know that for sure,
Mhm.
5-4 snow removal.
yes, which I also have that.
yeah, that was.
I understand it was recorded.
Yeah.
In addition to all of that, there was also An additional motion made during the landscaping conversation, since that was brought up, to allow John to approve the RFP contents and the process. But, and that one passed unanimously by everybody.
We didn't discuss anything else.
But, so it was indicated during the meeting that an RFP would be created based on that motion.
No, we had gotten one started. Is that, there's been
Right,
only one question on it in regards to the adoption plan?
so far, but, purchasing's working on it. They have more questions. I'll send it back to you too.
Yeah, I mean, it's not part of our,
So what happens if there's an RFP created, but then you don't need it? It just goes away?
Well, I think you guys need to decide before staff spends a lot of time doing a bunch of work, if you want that RFP or,
I mean, it was not any more work than we've already created.
Well, staff has to do stuff, they'll write it up and.
right, we
publish
have
it,
to, right,
And then field
Then administrative.
applications or whatever you call them.
Questions, it didn't sound like there was anything that you guys couldn't decide the scope of work for this organization and then determine what makes sense after that.
Right,
Just because they approved you to do that, that was, if there's an RFP, it wasn't saying, John, go do an RFP. I think it
If it's
depends
needed,
what,
I can do one.
yeah, because it's work for everybody,
Right.
city staff and you guys, so
Right.
it matters what you decide.
so, can we go back to the
Yeah.
agenda?
yeah, we got a little ahead of ourselves. So just, yeah, this email from Julia, we'll look at that after we figure out how to get to Becky paid. Because that is where that's really where we're at. So I'm curious, how, there's a couple questions I have before we like even get into any discussion, but, has North Barstow submitted a temporary service or is everything being wrapped up in their RFP?
They haven't submitted anything for temporary services.
Okay,
Um,
Just so far,
I did think that her email to you was that.
I thought there was some, she mentioned something I thought to me too.
I'll double check emails, but, and get with Julie on that.
So we don't know what other bids are doing in regards to getting you guys paid for the next couple months?
No, nobody submitted anything to us.
I don't think really anybody knows exactly what's going on with this process. So North or West Grand and Water Street, you don't have to worry about because the funding amount is so low. And sessions of the last West Grand meeting made it very clear that their 1,200 is a donation sponsorship to Becky. It has nothing to do with anything else. Water Street gives us 2,700, so kind of the same concept there. So it's not as important, I would say, for those two. Julia, from my conversations with her, assumed the email that she submitted to Billy contains that kind of 2-month window.
And I might have had, if I did, I think I responded that we needed a quote from Becky. I don't remember between the different, but
Okay.
I'll check my emails.
So we just don't have anything to discuss, because we don't know that.
Well,
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure, the email I was copied on, so it was, they have their beautification grant right now.
Yeah.
So we've already been in the midst of doing that work from the end of 2024.
Yeah.
So she wanted that, she wanted web hosting on our website, the information out there with North Barstow bid information. She wanted admin support at both the, exec level meetings and the full board meeting. She does want us to take additional minutes alongside the city so that she has access to them sooner. And then helping create agendas and things. So that's kind of, her limited scope of work for, January, February. And then after that would be the RFP.
And then so is it up to you at this point to create an invoice of what that going to cost?
Yeah, so I do want to express some just concerns so that you guys are aware. So obviously Becky has worked under the city umbrella for 22 years and has worked with the bids in that whole time. Our contract with the city, previous to now our revisions, one of the things we do was to work with you guys, work with the bid. We're still in the process of figuring out our contract, now because we haven't received anything back yet from legal on our latest, revisions. So what gets confusing in this scenario is, the bids have never worked with another service provider for this reason, for anything. Becky just kind of assumed it, even though it wasn't explicit. And so one of the problems with that is that, you know, we've built into our budget, your contributions from all four bids as our working budget for next year. Had we not left the city, and again, there was a lot of pressure really to leave, you know, there wasn't necessarily a good path forward, so we had to. It feels a little bit difficult to take 22 years of work that was assumed and now itemize it into dollar amounts like per hour, because it's really not the nature of how this arrangement or the contract had initially been set up. You know, ideally, that would be the same scenario. So Julia has mentioned multiple times that in the past, she had it separated where $20,000 was a donation to Decky just to do work, and then 20,000 specific to North Barstow for need. So what comes into play for me as I'm bidding this out is a significant risk that numbers that I put on her paper are gonna have to match up with numbers I give you, but you guys haven't determined that 40 or 20,000 of yours was for a donation.
Right.
And so I'm worried about getting pigeonholed into something that I put out for one, that then have to be different for another because of that determination. We still haven't figured out how you guys can donate to our organization.
I was just, and that I think is my other
I think you
question.
need to bid based on the RFP and not worry about the money amount.
Well, what
To
I'm worried
figure out
about-
what your cost
Let's
will
just say,
be,
you guys
just like
decide
any
not to go with
contractor.
Yeah,
They don't all have to be the same.
No,
No, but it would be strange for me to bid out hours for her that look different to yours based on a $20,000 value or a $40,000 value by month from the same
yes,
organization.
but again, I think you need to bid on the work you're doing, not the dollar
And I
amount.
guess my point is the work we've been doing has been so intermingled for 22 years that to
It's
have
really
to
hard.
figure this out in such a short time frame and not allow the contract with Becky in the city to be finalized before we're able to do work for you seems absurd to me. I get it, we'll bid on it. I'm just saying that I feel like this process is kind of unfortunately like a waste of time for everyone, because I think that the goal would be to continue working as we have in 22 years and be able to, as we develop as a new organization and as you guys kind of have new rules and policy from the city, develop that as we go, because it's not known, right? It was very different before. I'll put numbers to paper. I'm just telling you my concerns.
So I'm gonna go a different direction with this and see if it makes sense. So our budget's $40,000. Can't we create an RFP that says these are the services we require, and we require it to fall in with that $40,000? If we want to break it up by monthly, it's like we're hiring an organization for, what did that come to?
It's $3,000.
$3,333 a month, and these are the services we get.
So,
Why is that? And then you say, yes, I'll do those services for that amount. And then there's organization B out there, and it's like, we can't do that because that's that's not enough money for us to do.
I was working out some numbers last night too, and just thought, why is it that we can't lump sum all of these administrative tasks and just say, hey, we need 15 hours a week, do these things?
and you can do that.
Okay.
You can say, we want 15 hours a week doing X, Y, and Z.
And
Okay,
this is
And
what
then
we're
if
going
they
to pay.
determine they can't do it within 15 hours, their
Or at
proposal
that
can
dollar
come
rate.
back and say, or you just say, we need 15 hours a week, do X, Y, and Z, and then they determine how much it would cost. Cause a company could be like, okay, we can't do all this in 15 hours, but here's what we can break down and do, or,
right,
And I don't know that you can put a dollar amount requirement within the RFP itself. That's the.
we could just say we need
You
15
can
hours
do
a week and they
hours.
can bid out.
And then we know what is
Yeah,
okay.
we typically don't put dollar amounts, cause then everybody's gonna bid the dollar
Same.
amount instead of, you
Getting
know,
it best.
or they know, oh, it's $2,000, let's bid 1,700, cause everybody else is gonna bid two. So
Okay. So
they need to bid it based on their work, what they're, yeah.
So my other question, as far as donating or sponsoring, how we can do that?
Yeah, if it's specific in your budget to donate or to sponsor and it's went through the proper process of being approved and stuff, that should not
So
be
in
an
this
issue.
case, but if we are dealing with Decky, and this is not with the RFP, this is just the monies now. Can we donate to them today?
Today,
Mhm.
let me get with the county and I can't, it won't necessarily be today, but we can start that process. I probably need an invoice from you saying that,
That we would like
Donation
to
to-
donate, okay. So I guess, I mean, I can like spin something at you guys to see if you think this makes sense. I don't know if it does, but, so I just kind of took our dollar amount. Let's say we have enough to pay $30 an hour for 15 hours of work. Winds up being $450 a week for a year, right? So that eats up 23,400. We have an additional 16,600. We could choose to donate that 16,600 to Decky today, plus 8 weeks of work at or 50 a week.
Then why would there be an
So
argument?
then you get 20,200.
Because we
The
can,
RFP process.
because we can only go through a temporary process of what, 2 months or so? Then the
Well, that's
rest
what
of
I'm
it.
saying, but if 20,000 is, or 16,000 is a donation, then really you're bidding for,
The
you're
rest
not.
of the year.
well,
Why
This
would
isn't
it be
regards to
different?
RFP at all. This
Well,
is
that's what I'm
just-
saying, though, if
yeah.
20,000 is given to Decky for a donation, then you're not looking to give Decky more than 20,000, so it
If-
falls below the line.
We just have to RFP.
If
out
you're
the addition.
doing like North Barstow and you're going to have Decky manage your entire budget, then
Yeah.
everything in the budget needs to be included in that RFP.
Mhm.
So that's why an RFP is needed for that, because they're gonna be able to spend within your entire budget.
So then
on
we should
those
really
things.
only be voting on donating or sponsoring to Decky today. To get them money. And then wait for the RFP.
How specific does that have to be in an RFP as far as what they're going to do? I mean,
Well,
so,
none of that money goes to Decky for operations.
so if we just say we are looking for an organization to implement our operating plan, do you have to go dive deeper into that? What?
Yeah, I would just note your operating plan, give it as much detail as you think an organization would need to fulfill it.
Okay. And then you think if we do that, we should take that back to the full board though? Your feeling, way the minutes.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back, I can go back and watch the video. My understanding was they only wanted to, have Decky or an organization possibly do a couple things, see how it goes for a year and then.
See, I think the intent on the board is I think they were looking at that whole $40,000. And if we're donating half of it, then we don't have $20,000 budget. And so what? There's not much left to do. I mean,
Mhm.
we could say implement our operating plan, but.
But they would, yeah, they would have to, explain how they'll do each one of these, what the cost on each of them will be with they'll have administrative cost. Because unless they're doing all this for free, which I
Well, we
would.
kind of have been though, that's kind of the point that I'm saying, is
Mhm.
we've been receiving this money, I mean, if you look at what we do downtown with events, for instance, that 40,000 could go strictly, I mean, South Barstow receives the bulk of everything we do. So you could argue that $40,000 literally goes to just those items. And much of what we do is free, and that's why even if you guys giving us our whole budget, we're really only looking at a very small portion that can be used for admin support, which we do anyway, by the nature of our organization.
Mhm.
So it does get sticky, it's this triangle of, understanding of who does what and how we help.
See, I
So-
think.
Yeah.
Don't get fired up about this, but, so that's the thing though, it's like, yeah, all these activities, entertainment, stuff like that, understandably is here and costs money. But a lot of that stuff's not necessarily in our mission to pay
To
for.
have an event,
Yeah. So,
well, it actually was, before you joined the board, when Dan Gelzer was running the board. Becky had the goal was to throw 2 events in South Barstow. That was what the 40,000 was for. It was for Summer Fest and Fall Fest. We haven't updated our operating plan since before he was on there. So actually it is your goal. I mean, that was what was the agreement. It's taken shape and changed differently, partly because of the shared staff with the city and those lines getting blurred of like who does what. I do also just want to remind you that in the last year, we took a lot of care to make sure we were listening to your businesses. We updated the hours of Fall Fest to accommodate restaurants in the evening to make sure everyone was off the street. We also left open, we did not place any booths in front of businesses that were on South Barstow to give them access to the street. Halloween, we changed the date. So like, we are absolutely working with the bids in that regard and specific to South.
I don't disagree.
Well, I'm just saying that money.
But I mean, I guess, you know, with the current makeup of the board and stuff like that, I don't know so much if all of a sudden Fall Festival left, I don't know how many of the bid board would be bummed out about that.
That's super, super unfortunate to hear. I know, I'm just.
We go back to the January and February.
Yeah.
Possible scope and payment, how you
So-
want.
My, you know, and, my thing, I want to make sure that Decky, well, I think I can say this, I only speak for myself, but like, I want to see that Decky gets the money that we promised before even all the procurement and all this stuff. We talked to them about getting their 40,000. They've restructured, they've changed everything. I don't think it's appropriate that we wouldn't try our hardest to make sure that they see.
Oh,
all
I
this
agree with
money.
you. I'm not saying we shouldn't get the money.
And give them the opportunity to prove themselves and do what it is that we're asking, which we don't even know what we're asking half the time, you know, and, of course, I agree.
I guess
with-
that's my point is
Yeah.
that I might have been a little snarky with that, but the point is that I think our bid board wants to give you money, at least I want to give you money to help us operate our operating plan and our bid, to help manage our bid. And if there's money left over for, you know,
Why don't
festivals and stuff, but
Can I tell you what I can help with that?
Yeah.
Helpful, where I
Can-
see. the
Can we
state-
just stick to the temporary one first, because that was the first on the agenda?
Yeah, I think,
January and February?
Yeah.
Yeah, please,
Okay,
thank you.
so things that I'm already doing.
Yeah.
Lights, they're on all year, right? But just even this week, I've had conversations with Jeremy Bowie from the city about we have the lights on for the Christmas season, so they're on all the time.
okay, so managing lighting.
Yes, on the city's end. So we got that taken care of where the sensor, you know, got turned back off. We actually still have lights that are on, so he missed some, so I'm gonna reach out today, figure out what's been going on with the side streets and the Garland there, and make sure those are off and back on the timer like they're supposed to be. We had the car accident in front of Tangled. I've been talking to Al Ringfeld, Leoness, as well as Jeremy Bowie about that situation. It's a very complicated situation. I kind of explained how an electrical box got taken out, the tree got taken out, and so did the street wall. So I'm navigating that process with them. They were under the impression that Decky had actually owned the electrical and had suggested that our insurance cover it. Obviously, you guys know that was a South Barstow good investment. We paid for it, so that's yours. So now, because even in the engineering department, they weren't quite aware of how that works. We are looking into whose responsibility is the tree. Is the bid going to be billed for that, or is that a city responsibility moving forward? The city has replaced trees for you in the past. This one's now in question, so it's a new process that we have to navigate. The electric is yours. We need to contact NEI to get them out here, to get that covered and paid for, and then the city's gonna have to come back and turn in on the electric for that. So I've been navigating that process. I don't know.
So we could say coordinating with city staff on projects,
So,
yeah.
right? That's what we're doing.
right, and I would add, those are things that you guys can reach out to me and
Mhm.
we can address.
Sure.
So that when there is confusion on things like who's responsible for what.
Would you have known that South Barstow did own the electrical boxes?
Would I?
Alrika told me Decky was and offered help to get insurance.
I don't know that I would have just.
No, I'm talking about Billy.
Oh, yeah.
It was
So-
full circle.
So I guess,
Well,
I
I
guess
think
what
my
I'm-
point
I'm
is
trying to
some of the things that were brought up in the bid meeting Friday, we were wondering why, if somebody would have just came to like me, we could have addressed all those questions and taken care of them instead of them becoming confusing and frustrating.
and so,
I don't think.
perfect, this is what I'm saying though. I want you to get hold of you. I don't want to have to do it. So that's what I'm trying to say.
So you don't want me to call Jeremy when we need an electrically, when we need to go through Billy?
Well, whoever has to, however that process is gonna be, but I want you to be able to do some of these things for us. That's the
Billy, I
point I'm
think
trying
the
to get
point
at.
is that the bid wants to be able to move nimbly and not have to kind of wait, with city hall hours being different and different things. Decky is the organization that has worked with them. They have the information, and I've been on the bid board for 12 years and I was chair. I obviously know your bid. It is of value to you to have even me here in this room because from wearing that hat, I know this information. That's the point, right? We're passing on this historical knowledge so that when the boards change out, you guys know kind of why you did things. You don't reinvent the wheel every 2 seconds.
And I don't understand why we can't have both of you guys. I don't know why we can't have this.
You can. I was just sharing, like, there was some stuff that was shared Friday. And it seemed to me like, there was a feeling that they have to go to council to get it resolved. And we're sitting there wondering, well, why didn't you just say something to us so that we could have addressed it? It had went through other staff and the things with the electric box and stuff like that. Or just like being able to do an RFP for Decky to manage the bids. If would have went to staff, accounting, finance on that, they would have absolutely told you no. And that was my original answer was no, but I kept working it up the ladder until we were able to make it happen. So if there is pushback on things, if you come to me, it's not saying we'll absolutely be able to do it. There may be reasons why we can't, and I'm gonna, be like, yeah, unfortunately we can't, but this is why. But for like the electric box, you share with me, engineers saying this, then
I think
we could figure it out internally instead of going to council on something that could have easily been solved.
What are you talking about when you console or the electrical boxes?
Like when you brought it up in the meeting Friday.
As an example of work we do?
No, as an example of something that wasn't working because people, Leah and Al were pushing back that it's not, city responsibility. We could have, if you would have came to me, we could have quickly solved that with the understanding of when you guys do place stuff, then what is ownership and what is responsibility.
But that's the whole point, Billy. This is the city, when we placed these 4 or 5 years ago, that conversation never happened. And when we started 18 months ago about looking for an MOU between the city, Decky and the bid, these are those conversations. This isn't magically like different now just because like you're in this position from anyone else who it was previous. There's also a value in having an organization who is available to do this work for you. So I'm gonna keep going on this topic. The reason I brought it up at that meeting was that it was presented for the first time ever that the bid would now have to pay for the tree as well. And so, the same thing happened a year ago with North Barstow with a bench. That was the first time it was ever brought up that there would be a charge for the labor. Those things need to be worked out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you would have been aware of that, but
And I agree, but nobody's coming to me as the bid liaison
I
to
told
address those things.
Jeremy to turn off the lights, and on the phone call, he brought up the issue here, because I was like, why aren't the lights working there? He explained what happened, he said he talked to Leoness, and that she would be reaching out to me, so I sent me an email. It's a normal process, there's no reason that can have happened. Also, I just wanna point out with this exact situation, the tree that got hit, so the fire department came, the police department came, the city inspector came, okay? The tree got hit, was leaning over the sidewalk, for 5 days it stayed that way. I called Matt Stoudemire, he did not know that the tree needed to be cut down, he came out that day to cut it down when I called him. When I went out there, after he cut it off, I noticed that the parking sign was laying on the sidewalk for 5 days. I picked up the parking sign and walked it over to City Hall. These are the reasons why it's okay to have an outside group who's maybe more available or in tune and in touch with the needs of the bid, because I'm handling it in real time, where there's not necessarily someone at the city who's communicating that out effectively. And so there's a value.
And I'm not
to let you
pushing
do your job
back
and be fine.
on you doing that, but if you would have contacted me the day after about the tree and the sign, I would have had them taken care of instead of,
Well, I think
So
the lines are a little blurred on if Decky can contact you or not. The direction is very fuzzy right now, and I think, I'm gonna tell you right now, there was a lot of, this is before your times, this is no disrespect to you, but there was a lot of lost trust with the city.
and
now
I
we
know.
have- we've got somebody that not only has historical knowledge, but is also a trusted source. I'm gonna tell you, a lot of us feel like we don't have the time to micromanage a situation anymore. So while we can reach out to you and say, hey, we got this, accident that happened, we don't need the time and
Or-
the wherewithal to do
and I'm
follow-up.
also
We would
saying
love for
Aaron
somebody like that.
could have reached out to me. I'm not saying it had to be one of you guys. Aaron could have reached out to me and said, hey, this happened yesterday. I'm not sure who all's being informed, but here are some of the issues that need followed up on.
Jump in, because
Yeah.
I think we have not really been in any executive meetings, so I'm just kind of absorbing as much as I can. It sounds like what we can just do is, like, you just be a point person, on the
Yeah.
point,
Right.
right, committee?
That's what we're.
It's maybe the
And
community,
she's the point person for the city.
right, so maybe there's the, there's, well, this is kind of where we're gonna discuss the communication, and how it works, because how it works, like, Aaron, you reached out to certain contacts that you thought would work to, and if it's dealing with a city related, I don't know if it's, we just include Billy on it. I agree that you know a lot of things, being a bid chair, having a business downtown, and being on deputy for now, you probably have a lot of knowledge on many different things. Again, I don't know what the disconnect fully is.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, if there's an issue and things aren't getting done,
But
you
they-
can
they
come
got
to
to-
me to address.
That's the point. They got done quickly because I was able to have that contact. I have an answer.
May I jump in here? So I think, also, I'm super new to all of this. What I think we're missing is that this is the first time I've heard about all of the additional things, aside from hearing about the accident when I was at another bid meeting last week. I didn't know about any of that, and if this is gonna be put onto me, I would like to be kept in the loop personally.
I'll copy you.
Both
But-
of us.
but I'm-
Yeah.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, as we're still transitioning, then that follow-up, I feel like, because right now, we house all of the bids money, should be our responsibility to do. Sure, yes, you needed things done immediately, you made the phone calls you needed to do, but then we also need to be kept in the loop when our staff isn't getting things done, because we can't fix it if we're not being told that things are not happening as quickly as they need to be, and it's being handled by somebody outside.
Or you're being given
I'm not
information
sure
that,
because it was in front of my business and I knew about it.
I
There's no way I would have
understand.
known about it. Just wait a second. Had we let the city handle it, because like I said, John Wilkinson, the owner of the building, hadn't been called that the building got hit at all, even that day. I was the one who informed him. There was police, city assessor, and the fire, and the communication didn't get back anywhere. And so the only reason I was well aware of this is because my business got hit by a car. Had it happened down by you, Jeremy, honestly, I don't know that I would have known unless you called me. So I wouldn't have been handling it. I also had to talk to the electrician for that reason. This is all pointless.
I do need to.
yes, what I'm saying is, if you include us,
I'll copy you on the next
We-
email. I was on
we-
the phone with Jeremy.
and I'm not doing this as to frustrate or argue. I'm just saying, when something like that happens, if the business lets us know, now that we know that this is an issue that this person wasn't contacted, that tells us we need to put a process in place where if something does happen, that they're making sure they're contacting. So it's not just one thing. It allows us to see where the process may be broken, what's not happening as it should, and fix it overall, so it's not a continual.
There's a couple things
issue.
I do want to say, one thing, I can understand, feeling like if you're not in the loop, I mean, it was like with all these new procedures and everything that changed, I was made to feel like I was doing something wrong when I didn't even know it in the first place. So I can give you that, it's messy right now because Becky isn't even receiving any money from us. They've had a lot of tension with this lady. I don't think it's right. And it's really hard, I'm sure, for you guys to feel comfortable talking to the city or even having these clear lines of communication. So I don't think it's fair to, give you any combat for not putting them in the loop at this point. It's
No,
been very
no.
awkward.
And we're
we
just
need to figure this
saying,
out.
we gotta figure out the communication piece, because there's gonna continue to be frustrations if there's not communication. And we don't want it to continue to be frustrating when I think there's things that can be fixed and addressed so that it's not.
Now, and I don't know if I can use this as an example, but it's kind of like when we talk about snow removal. Sure, the city plows the streets, but we've had a line item for snow removal because we need things done at a certain quickness and a certain level. And maybe this is why this whole situation, like working with Becky is the same way. We know you guys can do it on top of your list of 8,000 other things. They're focused strictly on us. So clearly things might get done a little bit more swiftly.
Yeah, and we're not saying it wouldn't or it would, but, when things aren't working how they should, or when there are things happening, if we're in the loop, we can make sure others who need to be in the loop are. If it's not working the way it should, we can go and say, hey, why is this going on? And if needed, I have no problem going to Dave or Stephanie or whoever. Again, just like the RFP and stuff, it required escalating and having many conversations, but we got it done. So when there are problems and things that aren't working, or when something like that happens, if we're in the loop, then we know there's a broken process or there's something that's not working. And we can fix that. Or if somebody's telling you, no, you have to pay for this. But there's history and we can work all that out internally.
What do you think
And we're happy
for
to.
us doing this temporary agreement? I don't, maybe we need to not specifically state that you're going to only handle the problem with the accident. I'd still like to say, like, and we'd still like to pay for, the facilitated communication between you and things that are happening within our bid. Continued advocating for us. Like, those are things that I think we're willing to pay for. So I think we should be able to list this
Can
on
I-
our.
Let me just throw this out.
Yeah.
If we list 3 things right now, help coordinate our budget, coordinate and work with city staff on the bid's behalf, and work with our committee chairpersons and you to implement bid goals. And if we make a $20,000 donation, and then we work on it, and then right now for these 2 months, we say we're gonna pay $16.66 a month for January and February, 65. We'll do 65, yes, we've gone through this before. 16.65 for January and for February, so that's whatever that is, 3,000 something. Then we're gonna work on our RFP, so we pay that same amount the rest of the year, so you get your other $20,000. And I think a lot of the same things can go in the RFP, and we'll build some more things into the RFP.
That is 1,000% what I agree with. I think if there's any way though,
Yep.
Workable?
are we able to do a larger donation so we don't have to do an RFP and we can just do written? If we got that additional dollar amount down to 15 and we donated, that'd be what, 25 right away?
2,500, 1,000.
25,000. If we donated that and then we just had to do, not an RFP, but we would just have to do written
A service agreement?
service agreements for the additional 15.
Yeah, it would just have to
It's just that I haven't
state
even
what the
RFP.
donation is for.
And we can list all these specifics that we're looking for.
Can we make,
I mean,
can we do it for events?
I mean, you can do it for whatever. Our organization specializes on downtown. Your bid is housed in that boundary and all of our events focus on South Barstow. I mean, it can be for the fact that we have an extremely high stake interest in your district. And we serve you in ways that are beneficial.
Sponsoring the downtown South Barstow bid events.
The donation you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah, the donation goes specifically for,
South Barstow bid events.
and then you can do that 15 written for administrative. Say we demand, 20 hours a week and here's a list for every.
You gotta get 20 hours a week.
Well, we have
And then
1.75 staff, so, the reality of that, I think, with Julia as it was, she really, this might be the major place where you're different, is Julia really wants us to take meetings and help with the agenda and planning. That might not be something that you feel is necessary, and so.
I don't feel like that's,
I would rather you guys help coordinate our operating plan.
Right.
I'd rather get focused on like township that we started doing,
But I mean,
Don't want to
if
waste
you can
your
help
time.
Jeremy with, if he needs new banners.
So
Dude,
he
I
has
can help you with new band.
all the,
I designed the other ones.
So,
for the coordination.
so what would that be then? So we're saying, so you're just gonna see if we can give a $25,000 donation, see if that's okay, or do you know it's okay?
It should be okay, but you
Okay.
gotta state what it's for. So that it, you know, is it,
It's donated,
So we
to offset all downtown,
X
South
amount of
Barstow,
events or?
South Barstow bid events, which would include Fall Festival,
Fall festival, we're doing the sidewalk Saturdays for Fridays.
Fall Set,
We also
sidewalks,
do the mixed mingle events, which are
some mingles,
business networking events.
so we can,
One second.
say that and then list those events. That it's gonna offset.
Yeah, and I don't know that you need to list the events, but you
Okay.
could say this funding is to help with 4 events through the year or help sponsor X amount of events through the year.
So that's just in case something pops up.
And then, yeah, then when the invoice comes, it should specifically say it was for X event.
Yeah.
Right?
Can that donation though go out right away as,
Can't we go like,
or does it have to be split up
That
as
I
the
would
event?
have to check on if it is invoiced after, if it can go out in one lump sum.
That would be
Or
helpful,
before each event, we pay so much beforehand.
because I mean, obviously there is costs ahead of time to coordinate events and things like that.
Let's try to have.
so we could literally say this is just to fund Fall Fest.
I think that's foolish. If you're making a donation to, our like, if you were donating to the Humane Society, you weren't gonna be like, we want you to rescue cats.
Yeah.
No guinea pigs, no dogs, just cats. I mean, really what you're doing is you're putting a donation towards an organization that benefits. How we benefit you is by creating value through promotion and events held.
Writing this down as far as. Oh, no, you do
Yeah.
that.
And
Oh,
and
yeah.
either way is fine, being more open or designating
Yeah.
it for certain things. Cause I know like for the Day Resource Center, somebody recently made a donation, but they wanted it only to go towards operations. My thought is, well, until there's a space, there's no operations, but that's how they designated it and that's how the money has to be spent.
What is important to me is that you guys see funding because in 2 months, there's a shitload of work. And I know that,
Right.
and you've already done the work and you've already not been compensated for it.
Can
So
we list
This is important to me. that
some
you
of the
see.
events to include but not
Limited to.
limited to? Can you make statements like that?
You're gonna know.
Actually. Is that?
Yeah, and just in case they
Carrie.
decide, well, instead of Fall Festival, we're gonna call it Amazing Autumn Extravaganza. If you specifically, I know I couldn't come up with the last day.
Yeah, I got that. I,
If you specifically say Fall Festival, then that could create, so
Right.
I would just say
South
for
Barstow bid
X,
events.
X number
Yeah,
of
I think
events.
So is visible and promoted, you know, like, because again, most of our events touch your district because.
Right.
Well, partly because of the history is that we were originally years ago supposed to have 2 events. And so that's where they're all started, you know, Water Street's exploring an event, down there now, but that is part of the reason we're not doing anything down there, because we're not funded. So I really think it could be as general as, you know, events and promotions for South Barstow District.
And is there, I mean, that's complicated, but there's, is
There don't.
there, what?
There don't.
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably good. So it's great. So what is, you can take an action item. So
So do you want me to
do you
make a
want to make a
motion?
motion?
I'll make a motion.
And then Billy, how do you want this received? Like through email?
The motion?
No, the donation, like request,
Uh,
or how do we?
You-
yeah,
you
how do we go
can
about this?
Email an invoice, but I'll double check the motion depending on what you guys decide on the motion.
Do I need to
With,
get an invoice from Jackie for donation?
no, it would come from you because you're requesting
I
the
mean, I've never
funding.
made an invoice.
So in the past, the city, so either Kendall or I would make it for this case. Obviously, for us doing it right now, it would be a little strange because there's no arrangement set up. But there was a template that they put your logo on that I created for all bid.
Do you guys have that? That you could give?
I could probably.
We probably have them in the bid folders. I haven't been through all the bid folders, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've never made an invoice, so I don't know what.
There was the one, North Barstow had the most recent ones, so it would just be swapping out the logo.
Yeah.
Kendall should
And-
have that.
And we can help with it,
Okay,
based on the motion and stuff and send it over for you to sign and, cause
Okay.
it would be pretty easy just typing in what it's for.
okay. And we know we can donate and or sponsor. I mean, this is something that bid dollars are available to do.
Yes, and I'll check with the counting. Can it all go out at once? Is it an invoice after the event? Is it invoice before the event to cover cost?
Okay, so my motion is gonna be to make a one lump sum payment for a donation from South Barstow to Decky to help fund events and promote those events in the South Barstow bid district. I'm sorry, thank you, in the amount of $25,000.
Do I have a second?
Oh, Jeremy.
And discuss, tell me, Carrie,
Oh, yeah. Make a second and then discuss and then change it.
Yep.
You have to
I
say.
second that.
Okay.
Okay, discussion.
I guess, just so I'm clear, so we have a budget of 40,000.
Mhm.
Doing 25,000, so 5,000 is kind of for some of that operational stuff, that's kind of January, February, is that kind of,
That's gonna be a next one.
okay,
That's not
so why
included.
25
Yeah, I'm a little curious.
versus
as well.
20?
Just
Didn't we?
so, okay.
Then we
so
don't have to do an RFP for the remainder amount.
You would-
Procurement dollars,
30,000.
if you go,
Oh, plus you
Oh.
increased it. Well, it makes a nice clean number for this next one.
Yeah, then we don't have to do the 1666.
Yes.
that's why we did it. Yeah, no, it was my understanding that at 15,000 or less, you only have to get written.
30 or more is RFP.
Yep.
Under 30 is written.
What's the 15K that I think?
Nothing.
I don't know, under 5 is verbal, but for me, I would just do hitting on everything so that.
Okay,
the
well,
market
here's the
rate.
guideline.
Would you like less?
15.
I'll take, at this point, beggars can be choosers.
So how does this work, is we're due, so one's gonna be for we can do a donation, which is gonna be towards promotions and promoting our events and things like that.
Mhm.
As far as the
The additional 15.
operations, essentially to, hey, be the point person.
That's gonna be.
So-
15.
So-
We're gonna do that.
If we can, I'm gonna look at it, I brought up your budget here. Your budget is 40,000 for South Barstow bid staff support.
And that was changed recently. It used to be DECI support. They changed it to bid staff support when the bid wasn't certain they were gonna keep funding DECI. But the reality was that the bid actually was having more of a problem with the economic development side of things and with the DECI things was all changed. But that's why the verbiage changed on the,
Is that gonna screw us
I
up?
was just gonna say.
I'll have to
we
double
have-
check on that. I would go ahead and make your motion so we don't have to come back after questions, but I can double check, to see if there's could be
Because we specifically don't have like a sponsorship line item.
correct. It's just says staff support. So
Would
that
we-
might require you going back to the full board and
how
having
do you
them
guys do
designate it.
self-insure?
We have a.
I mean, what
specific
line does it come out of? Sponsorship?
I think there is a sponsorship, or did we remove that?
But this
Nope,
isn't a
there isn't.
sponsorship. This is a
There's also a-
donation.
We must have
Have a line item.
eliminated that this year.
Yeah, there is no, there is sponsorship, sorry,
Yeah.
5,000.
And activity promotions today have activity.
No.
So I think this was kind of one of the things that EauClaireWI.gov advised on, was like, all of the, so your budget actually falls into totally different categories. You guys just named them other things. But they had to coordinate somehow with accounting at one point. And so you guys renamed things. So actually, because I just put this together for the council meeting tonight, I was asked to show kind of collectively where all the bid money goes. So like Water Street calls their garbage service maintenance. And you call it garbage service. North Barstow calls beautification or landscaping beautification, you call it landscaping. So, it would be smart to, as we move forward, probably not this year, but think about those categories again in a way that meaningful. for you.
Yeah, it used to always say Decky, but we kind of had, I guess, protected ourselves
Yeah.
in case that all fell apart with
Yeah.
Decky.
Well, and even
And now
then
it's
too,
repaired, I
yeah.
think, and we want to move forward. Okay, so let's finish that motion and then
Do you have any?
Billy's gonna
questions?
check on it, and if we, worst case scenario, we have to take it back and have a special board meeting.
I would just think that that dollar amount, could we pull it from reserves and then watch it?
But you'd still have to have the full board approve that.
But, right, but I mean, then it would just,
Could your motion say something about staff support for festivals and events held in the South Barstow bid?
Oh. I suppose I could change that. Okay, well, that's a donation.
It probably would be, but is that $25,000 for staff support? Not saying it's not, don't, but
We do a lot, just FYI. I mean, you could do $10,000, whatever it makes sense. The point is, we're gonna continue to do the work no matter what. If we don't have your funding, we have a lot of work ahead of us as a new organization to get fundraising, which we've never had to do in 22 years because we were funded primarily from the business leader that was.
So is our goal, the remaining 15,000, that will be used towards using Decky as kind of our point person?
Yeah. Administrative.
I mean, what is north?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, if we do,
2020.
I mean, if it's just visual that we have to do this for, if we reduce it to 15,000 instead of 25,000. And we say there's 4 events, that's only like a little less than 4,000 an event. And that's certainly way around.
Well, I mean, this
That
is
could
the Decky event calendar, just the record. I mean, as far
And we
as
have more coming.
events go,
What do you have for, how many hours would we be, for 15,000 for the year?
I broke it down monthly to 1250 a month, nice round number. And if we said 10 hours a week,
Yeah, that's realistic. So, I mean, think about your meetings. I would probably,
$125 an hour.
that's
I mean, unless. you
30,
want-
yeah, what would it be? So 1250 divided by 40 would be 31.25 an hour.
Oh, 40 hours?
$10, yeah, 10 hours a week,
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
which is
I mean, I make
ridiculously cheap.
$27 an hour.
So that's-
Cheap, and Matt makes 21, so if both of us work on anything for you. Shoot, I was just gonna say something about 40 hours a week. So I think the things that you need to think about is, me attending meetings, so like exec board and full board. You know, do you want me at, all of your subcommittee meetings, so those will eat up time, but, you know, meetings are about 2 hours. If there's any prep before that, your 10 hours a week is really well
Can-
wrapped up.
Can we go
Yeah.
back to the motion
Yeah,
of
let's get-
donation to help fund and promote events, and let's finish that up? And
So
How does that?
what do you feel like I need to add to that motion to make it,
I just-
or are we just gonna?
I'm gonna have,
Leave it.
yeah, I'll have to talk to accounting based on what your budget says and what the motion is.
Okay.
We have to finish the motion as you
Right.
stated it, so you have
Right.
to vote on
Somebody
it.
either
And
vote
then
or
let's-
amend.
So guys, we want
Should-
to vote on this motion, it's been seconded.
Oh, yeah, we have a
Do we want
second.
to amend it, or are we good?
We discussed, all in favor.
Do
I
we
guess,
want
say
to,
aye.
and we can amend it if anybody wants an amendment here.
I have the details, so
Okay,
I'm good.
I say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Decky, you will hopefully see your $25,000 donation.
And if not, how soon do you think you'll get that
I'll
answer?
reach out to accounting after the meeting, and so
Okay.
as soon as I hear back from them,
Okay.
I'll let you guys know.
Okay, cool, because if we have to do another board meeting, we'll have to get that notified pretty quick.
Well, and then, so I think.
Can I make
right,
another motion then?
Oh.
Since we're going? What do
Do
you
you
think
want
about
it-
that,
is
Rebecca?
it
We're gonna
for
get
like-
this done, huh? I'm gonna make a motion that the remaining $15,000 of, what is it called?
South Barstow bid staff support.
Our Stowe bid staff support will be paid monthly. And that will be at a rate of $1,250 a month with the expectation that we would have about 40 hours a month administrative work done for us.
So I think.
And not done. And so we are requesting a temporary funding for January and February to be paid to Decky.
Oh, of that 15 you're talking.
Cause I think the rest of it's gonna
Then you
be,
don't have to do RFPs, and we don't have to do.
Well,
does that seem like it covers?
Well, hang on, we could do the temp funding, but we would still need for the full year, quotes, being it's over. You
So-
wouldn't need an RFP, but you
But
would need
okay.
quotes.
Okay.
Right. But I don't need to put anything in the motion for that, do I? We're just trying to get January and February temporary payment.
That's what the motion needs to be for. And yeah, and I would probably make a motion
Another
to,
one after that, right?
to seek bids for the remaining year. Seek quotes.
Separate
Yeah,
motion.
you can
Yeah.
find both of them issues.
Visit EauClaire,
Okay, so that one, that first one, okay, and then I'll do another one.
So the first one is 15,
and then
you want the temp month.
The January and February temporary funding for Decky would be at $1,250 per month with the expectation of 40 hours a week
Okay.
work,
Okay, so this,
40 hours a month.
yeah, so just to clarify, this motion is for,
For South Barstow.
for
staff.
2 months of bid support, $1,250 a month for 40 hours a month. So this is just the motion for January and February.
Correct.
Second that, any more discussion? The other thing I want to discuss, I guess, we will, because I'm gonna have to reach out to a couple other options, give it, or three, right? How would you like to, do I just make a list of what it is that we expect for the next 2 months and then you bid on that? Okay.
Right, a scope of work, the
That's
same scope of
thing that I
work.
can send out to
If-
these other contracts.
If anybody asks a question, you have to share the question in response to, the other contacts.
Okay. And we can wrap that up for you here in hopefully the next week and.
Yeah.
How long does that have to sit out there? Same
For,
thing like
for the
we were doing
quotes,
bids.
yeah, I would just, if you reach out to a couple and, you can reach out to whoever may provide this type of service, but I don't, Visit EauClaire may be a good one, Block by Block may be a good one. I'm sure there's probably other companies that could provide,
What's the length of time?
admin
they need
support
to
service.
wait? If they don't respond back, just call it good, be like.
I would give it a week. And if they don't respond, maybe follow.
Because we did that with garbage and we just.
Yeah,
didn't hear from it.
Maybe with email, if you're just doing an email follow up after a couple of days and say, hey, I just wanted to move this top of your list. We were hoping to get a response, and that way, I mean, it shows you tried everything to get somebody to respond.
And you have the Block by Block contact for Nikki.
I can share that, yep.
Okay. That's great. So that's the end of discussion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed.
Then I need a motion to have Nikki make a motion that our chair, Nikki, will write,
Contact and submit the.
yeah.
Yep.
Or service agreements?
Yep. Yeah, do we need to make a motion? I think. that-
Yes.
Ability requested.
Oh, okay.
So Nikki will create a scope and seek quotes.
Yeah.
For staff support
Barstow did.
for March through December.
Nope, this would just be Jan to.
No, no, no.
That's what you just
For this
voted on.
year. And then it's gonna,
Yeah, it's the non-temporary one, so the March through the end of the year.
Which is gonna look the same.
Yeah.
As what Jan does.
The scope of work would be the same, yeah.
It's just the length of time.
and
Are
then,
we looking for like monthly or just like a lump sum?
I think let's do monthly, since we're
You're billing
paying
monthly, yeah.
bill monthly, and then,
And same 1250, 40 hours a week.
But we keep all those numbers out of it.
you
I-
put the 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
Right.
tell them that you want 40 hours a month, sorry.
Yeah, geez, yeah, we'll take.
Sorry, Aaron.
We'll take that, that great. Yeah.
We might charge a little more.
I think that completes our entire.
Is that it?
agenda.
Believe so.
So, yeah, I think the only thing is.
Wait.
Yeah.
Did we second that?
Can't remember how many times I'll second.
Okay,
Yeah.
you've seconded all of them.
Okay.
Just go ahead there.
And then you need to vote.
Aye.
Yeah, I think we
Aye.
passed it, yeah.
Say aye.
All in, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, great, it's passed. I think that clears everything up for us.
So,
Does everybody
So-
feel good?
Yeah, and I would just say being you're getting quotes for them to do the admin stuff. Any work is still gonna have to follow the procurement process. That was the reason Julia wanted them to manage their entire budget, was to kind of take it out of that procurement, but being they're just gonna be staff support, they can do the procurement process and give it to us, but it still has to follow our procurement
I think things
process,
are
just so.
entirely different for next year. I think
Yeah.
right now, my concern is
So-
getting money and
But just to be clear, you wanna move forward with the full year. Potentially, Becky will be doing the like bidding for the work to submit,
so then,
whereas like North Barstow might be giving the whole budget, where then we don't do that. I'm just
that's
going
fine.
over to the-
yeah.
Think in your scope of work, you need to list those items out. So if you want them getting the quotes for you, then you need
no,
to
I can do that.
list that.
No,
I
not
think
these
you're
quotes.
misunderstanding.
The budget.
For the
the
full
working-
year. When the meeting started, Billy had addressed that, the South Barstow bid, some people maybe didn't want all of your budget to be given to an organization to kind of manage.
Mhm.
And that potentially you have to bring back to the full board to decide that. So I don't think that's been necessarily determined, but what she's saying is in that 40,000, that's not one of the things that's listed. So if you did want us to go out and hire Jen or other people for you to do the work without having to follow the procurement process of the city, you would still need to do an RFP is what you're saying.
For the full budget, so
Right.
like you're a general
Like the
contractor who
177,000.
subcontracts people
I guess I'm just
after.
with the understanding that, like, once we get landscaping in order, we've already done all the procurement for the year, essentially.
Have you?
We'll have
Because
to
we've
check
done
on,
garbage, we've done music, we've done lighting, apparently Dave's got that covered, Jackie would be covered. So I'm not, saying
No,
that we
that's
don't
fine.
need to, but I feel like we've done that work.
I have no idea.
I think we're caught up.
yeah, you guys have done a lot compared to the
Yeah.
other bids. When
Right,
it
and
came out, you jumped on it and ran with it, so.
Yeah, probably gonna happen, no. But yeah, I mean, but again, like I said, like, this is something that could look very different next year, and we put this in your hands, but
Yeah.
this would be a, budget
So
conversation.
like for potentially the next thing that they really need to think about is repairing that electric, which they've used NEI in the past, kind of moved away from B&B because there were some issues there. Is Nikki needing to get a bid for that work from 3 Electrical?
Yeah, and is that
Given-
still confusion over who should be fixing it, or?
So Dave said at the Friday meeting that his understanding that anything above ground was the bids, but then
Okay.
it was like the trees really don't count as that. I would say that as far as the electric, it is very clear that that is South Barstow bid. The woman who hit the tree doesn't have insurance, and you guys really, as Aaron has explained on other things, when we had damage to lights, I feel like we had damage somewhere else. Well, remember when a rock got thrown through someone's window downtown?
Well, we gotta talk, but these boxes are gonna blow fuse, like, whatever, I mean, they're essentially our property.
Well, they're your property. I'm just saying that, so in this specific case, if you wanted it fixed tomorrow, that's not happening, right? You have to go out and get 3 quotes from electrical companies for the repair, in order. So there's gonna be little things
And-
like that come up.
Yeah, and let me check to see, because you guys don't specifically have insurance, but if the city insurance would cover something like that, being bids are a part of the city.
Well, and that was kind of
And-
the discussion
Well,
that I
so-
feel like doesn't have any.
You guys must have just an electric company you work with. You don't have to go out. and get
Nope, we
bid.
have to do all this.
Every time it's
It's not
something.
just the
Jeremy
bids,
does it.
we, if it's internal and Jeremy can do it, but if we're getting somebody outside,
Yeah.
we have to follow the same process that you guys do.
So if the light pole gets knocked over, you gotta.
Not an
get a bid.
emergency situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question is what is emergency? That's,
There's
Yeah,
exceptions for emergency, like when the
Yep.
irrigation head blew, I imagine that needed a repair immediately, so the water's just not leaking.
Right.
And then that's when retroactive payment can be
Who
made.
determines if it's an emergency or not?
I don't.
Well, and I think it's like, could it be turned off until it can be fixed? Is it laying in the middle of the road? Is it a stoplight that's preventing, you know? I think it's gonna be situation
And there's
based.
some reason that the city switched away, I forget now, but NEI has
If you
been.
wanna lay whatever information you have, I'm happy to make this.
So I don't know the next elect, but the 3-year-old contact NEI B&B, and I'm not sure what third does anyone else know.
Yeah.
The third one, that's like a major.
Yeah,
Um,
any electric company that could potentially do the work. And I'll check on the insurance. I believe the person I need to talk to is out of office today. I don't know if it's just today or what, but I can check on that
You know,
question too.
Two, could you do a little legwork? If, I know you've got so much time, but this seems really awkward. I mean, if I have something, an outlet in my house, I'm gonna take the electrician and say, hey, this is my outlet. I mean, really, should she have to take somebody over to the sidewalk and say, hey, this outlet's, that seems really bizarre that a volunteer bid person would be involved with.
They just need to get quotes.
No, I
Unless
know,
you're
but who's
asking an
gonna,
organization to do that, in which case, if that was part of the service agreement that you were
Right.
writing up, then I would be the one doing it, providing them to you.
Mhm.
You guys make the decision, but then again, is that calling a meeting? Oh, no, you can decide, right? You can decide.
I just think
right?
it's bizarre that
Yes.
that technically one of our bid board members would have to meet an electrician out there to show them where it's at and
And I think
explain.
it depends on each item, whether they're gonna have to go out and meet each person or if they can just snap some pictures. Here's where it is, here's what we need, send it to them and let them quote on that. It
Just seems so
Yeah.
bizarre that.
I feel like
The
it's
volunteers
something
doing
right
that,
into
but-
the service agreement, because I think more often than not, throughout the year, what's gonna come up is that I'll be available because it's my job, and you won't, because you have to be here doing.
So if you guys just in
There.
the last 10 minutes, can we go over what Julia has and omit what we're not going to include? Cause I can work on this right from this. Did you get one of these? This is the RFP. They're asking for a lot more with their administrative tasks than I think we're needing. For instance, the beautification grant. That whole, I think we can almost omit that whole thing. Correct?
I mean, you guys currently don't have that, that's something that was talked about at the full board level about potentially starting, but.
Maybe when we get money again next year, we got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pull for, just so you're aware, for both beautification, North Barstow has a thing where every year they pull a certain amount of money out of reserves for that project. So they know that their money most likely will go into reserves and they kind of plan their budget through that kind of capital reserves. So that's where their beautification is. They did increase it from 10 to 20 this year. And cool stuff's gonna happen, but something you can consider if you in the future.
So starting with that first bullet point, that communication of bid information, maybe, yeah. I think all of that sounds like something we would ask for.
Communication of bids.
Yep.
I don't know about
Or do
that though. Well, you got the document plan.
we just have to take out the beautification grant,
Do we?
programming, including material. Yeah, including material creation. That'd be like, we'd expect you guys to put up posters that you're already going to do for
Yeah.
different downtown events, et cetera. We could take out the entire bullet of administration beautification grant. That does not apply to us.
did you take out adopt a planner or?
No,
Okay.
So,
that is in.
yeah, adoptive planner is on a hiatus, however. I'm obviously the one that, we did the design. Getting the plaque, all of it, you guys don't wanna be doing that work.
I don't know, maybe after the meeting, if you've got a minute, I think we do need to talk about where the planner lies. So that.
Yeah, we had talked about moving it out of South Barstow into Decky at one point, we never officially did that, and then North Barstow started last year, but the way they do adoptive planner is different from your program. Because we were the ones that can accept money, that is how Jackie got started with adoptive planner in the first place, so Dustin hosted, the place where people bring money in, because you guys really can't do that as effectively. So that's kind of our link there, and why.
And I'm thinking if Jerry, then you could go and we're not doing, you know, a walking corner, me and John and you and Billy, if you have a minute to talk about the adoption plan.
Yep.
After we're done?
Yep.
Okay. Cool, with you guys? Okay.
On this, I probably can't do it. Can you do something, can you say like structurally in the top, be like includes but not limited to? I'm just like, I'm looking at here, like, what if you,
Yeah,
the program information, including, material, like, it says, including material creation and promotion, where we take the vacation grant, adopt planter, event sponsorships, what if we wanted something else in there? Or is like a limited, is just a limited to those two
I think
things,
being
or-
you're getting quotes, you want to be as specific as possible on what the expectation is, so everybody can fairly, submit a quote.
so we can take out, it also looks like that coordinate capital improvements.
I don't
So
know.
their capital improvements is a budget line
Yeah,
item
they
number,
do.
and so they actually, it's weird, but like Lily's fees, part of her stuff comes out of capital improvements, so like the adoptive, like buying of the planters, or like physical stuff, and then her work comes out of a different line item for the Barstow, and that's what their capital improvements are. I think you guys had an equipment budget, and really your capital improvements are kind of already put into different, you know, like
Yeah.
with landscaping, you have irrigation, that was a capital improvement. And you also have all of the amenities in your budget that,
Well, I guess I wouldn't take that out, because I mean, if we ever did come up with something that we wanted,
well, your, for instance, your speaker system. It's
And it might come up.
old, it might come up, that would be a capital improvement.
right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, wouldn't we want,
So like the likelihood of it happening is probably pretty minimal, but
I would
including
say-
it would be.
I wouldn't say that it would be now. I mean, all of a sudden next year we wanted to do something, we didn't have the budget, I mean, we have reserves.
That's when you go to the full board.
Now, again, right, this is just for like remainder of this year, so, I mean, next year is completely different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think John's right, though, keeping it
Why
in
not?
allows for it to be part of the work
Yeah.
quota.
Okay, advertising and marketing,
That's obvious.
that's, yeah, we just have to take out the.
I mean, the advertising and
The
marketing
kiosk.
kind of swept up in your.
We're taking the kiosk out though. So we don't
We
have a
just have to
kiosk.
take out the kiosk portion.
Do you think that this section is included in the motion you made today for the bid events and promotions, or is this different?
This,
Yeah, I suppose,
this would
right,
be, this would be the,
Donation.
this is part of the donation.
no, this would be part of the monthly, wouldn't it? Administrators, so part,
I guess this would kind of be like, I don't know, like doing your videos online and maintaining website and things like that. That's all advertising, I think.
Sure,
The expectation you guys keep up with that, not specific to a certain.
you guys don't have an advertising and marketing budget, anymore. That's in there, we used to,
Sure.
South Barstow used to do like work with WEAU. As DECI, one of the things that we're doing is collaborative marketing, and so again,
I think that's
potentially.
important to keep.
Sure, just saying that, it is part of probably the donation that you're giving to DECI as the promotion of the bid, but certainly,
Anybody, what do you guys think?
I guess I'm thinking it more simplified, but you know, like when you and Matt do a Facebook
sure.
thing,
And I
that's marketing in a way, and
Yeah.
it's your time, but not,
I mean, if we didn't have it in here, and suddenly at the end of the year, nothing was ever said about South Barstow, like, oh, which is never gonna happen, but, you know, if,
Just share.
I think we got it right, I think it's fine. Knowledge and advice for compliance with big legalities.
So I would just add to this one that, great that everybody would know all these things, but staff would be the one who would dictate. And if I would caution somebody telling you to do different. But I would think we would all be on the same
Could you
page. So
change the
that's all I would
verbiage
say
of
on that.
Like,
I think you lost me on what you meant there.
So if we're in a meeting and somebody does something and I'm like, you know, open meeting laws does not allow that, but then let's say Aaron says, yes, it does.
Oh, I guess.
If, I would just recommend that you go with staffs
What?
or pause whatever you're doing to get clarification. That's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I didn't think that would,
I mean,
I guess I was thinking it was just more like needing support, not really trying to,
Yeah, basic
Yeah.
understanding of how.
yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
which I think everybody should,
Yeah.
but yeah, just wanted to clarify.
So we can keep that, nothing. Encourage and host downtown events.
So that's a,
Keep in mind, this is for $40,000. This is what Julia was thinking.
And I think,
The biggest thing is we're taking.
so that wouldn't.
I think that falls in your 25.
Right, so we would take this out downtown events because technically, correct me if I'm wrong, but technically, if all of a sudden we did send this quote out and we hired somebody else out for the 15,000, you guys could still get the 25, and we could do that year after year after year. So, yeah,
Yep.
that should.
Okay, so omit that. New business support, tell me businesses about the business opportunities. Now, I mean, we do have an outreach committee. I don't know if that's necessarily that we can lean on each other for that, but I don't know if we would require them to do all that work.
That
That's
would
really
be-
what outreach committee's trying to do.
Yeah, but once again.
Remember, we only have a.
You're the chair, but I mean, I think what we're trying to do is eliminate some of the legwork for the volunteers if they're capable and have time and resources to do it.
I'll just keep it.
Right, like I would reach
Keep
them
it.
and you could say that you wanted something done and we go do it.
Okay.
Keep it in there. It's not like we're eliminating ourselves from doing this same stuff.
Absolutely.
It means that you're not, it's in here.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Again, I mean, I think, you have to stop us at any moment, tell us if this is falling far
I mean,
above the 40,000, right? Or the 15,000, excuse me.
It is.
That's the only,
It is if you're spending, what I was telling Jeremy before was, there's gonna be weeks when our priority is maybe fall festival, and so although it deals with bid and you gave a sponsorship to it, maybe you guys don't have meetings that weekend, I'm not spending as much on that. And, I think it's an ebb and flow.
right,
I'm not super concerned, it's not saying that every time a new business opens, you need to be there in 5 days and have to have this thing done. Of course, we're gonna.
so
do-
administration for bid meetings, I do not think that is necessary for you guys to attend all those meetings. The
Oh.
work has to be done by city staff and
Yeah.
it's being recorded now. Unless, you want to be there, I don't think we should
It'd be hard
require.
for them to
I know.
administrate our operations if they're not there at meetings.
And we don't have the access to the minutes immediately. I mean, the public meetings I can come, you don't have to count it as part of our work, but I certainly, it would be not great if I didn't know what you guys.
I think you could like skip exec as long as you're at the board,
Sure.
stuff like that.
Our committees, we've already been talking, we want to do way less this year,
Yeah.
so there's not a huge requirement to show up, but I just don't want, it to be, like, I believe,
Well,
Julia
Julia,
was asking that you have to be there. you
she
have
does
to-
want us there for everyone.
I don't, that's not part of what we don't have enough money to ask them to do that
Yeah.
at this point.
And just with how some things have changed since, so, provide notes to full board or committee within a week. The videos should be up pretty quick on the website, even though minutes might not necessarily
If
be
nothing
done
else,
right
that
away.
community events.
We'll still do the packet. I think Julia's gonna have Erin put the agenda together and send it to us. Do that type of stuff.
I think I would.
Send us any packet stuff, but we'll still create
Yeah, I
the
don't wanna do
packet
that.
and send
She's
it
not
out.
Responsible for packet creation and agenda.
Right.
Okay.
We'll still do minutes. They definitely can take their, anybody can take their own notes, obviously, but we'll still be responsible for the
Can we-
minutes.
Can we leave this at just attend meetings when? Attend meetings,
The other thing too, whoever we hire, if we're not able to,
Yeah, to attend.
whoever we hire though, if we're demanding more than that, we can always go to our full board.
Wait, one conversation, sorry.
what do you guys say? Go ahead.
We were just saying that this says up to 8 meetings, so it's flexible.
Doesn't mean these come the wrong way. It's never going
And you could say up to 12 to do.
It says,
I can have to attend up to 12 meetings, okay?
Yes.
And then emails to the staff request to post public notice in certain meeting. I mean,
I was gonna say though, if we demand more from somebody throughout the year, Becky or somebody else, and they're saying, well, this budget's not enough, I mean, we can always go to our full board and ask to authorize some reserves to pay for extra services, correct?
I'm gonna.
So,
but I do, yeah, you do need to at least try to
work with
pare
that.
this down a little bit. Okay, coordinate contacts and conversations between bid members and city employees.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yep. Financial. Okay, so we can take out the subcontract for now.
Is that up to you?
This is up to you. This is
up to
a
me.
work that you think that you.
No,
want to handle.
because this is, so Julia wants to give the entire budget to us so that then there is no payment procurement process beyond this decade.
We're not
So-
set up in that way.
As long as that's what you guys want, then certainly, I mean, I think there's parts of this that I think we'll be contacting with vendors. If we're not subcontracting, that means subcontract would mean we'd be paying them. So you'd have to take that out, but if it's just communicate with vendors or seek out bids for work for you, that's different.
So subcontract and pay, we're gonna change to communicate with. Communicate. With vendors or subcontractors.
I know I have lots of questions today, sorry. What happens if all of a sudden we get to May and we're like,
Don't wanna-
Julia's saying that this is working really slick and we would like to do that. Can we do, how would we, I mean,
Your board would just have to decide and then depends with the
we're not
amount.
stuck
it-
until the end of the year. if we
No,
wanna
with the
change.
amount, it would need to be an RF.
Yeah, you would do the
RFP.
same process just in May.
So I guess my question is, would it be smart for us to just leave it like it is in case we ever want to change it mid?
I would keep in mind that, Becky, you have approved 40 hours a month, 10 hours a week. And so I would be realistic with what can be done within 10 hours a week.
Right.
And what's the most important that you want done and need done that falls within 10 hours a week. And just kind of, I mean, you're not going to know exactly, but if that's what you're going for, because you'll put out the scope for quotes as 40 hours a month.
Right.
This is another thing I think it'd be timely, but keeping detailed records of transactions managed by the bid and financial reports. That's pretty timely. I think our committee
That's what
chairs
we'd
are
be doing
pretty on.
that. The only reason we would be doing this for North Barstow is because then we have to then, kind of prove that we spent the money in the ways that
Yeah.
we're supposed to. If you guys are doing the hiring through this, the city's payment procurement, I would have nothing to do with tracking your finances.
Yeah,
I mean, if I come to bid meetings, I'll be aware of them, but I wouldn't be the one
right.
doing.
I think we've set ourselves up in the last, well, especially for all this procurement, like, I feel like I got a handle on financials, and I feel like Dave's very involved in his lighting, you're very involved in your landscaping, and then
Involved,
probably too.
is that what we want?
What's that?
Do we want that to be too involved? I mean, I think.
Well, we would like to get away from it,
I'm
but,
with you.
yeah.
Well, I think that's maybe if you guys, it feels like you want to see how this year goes and then make a decision where Julia's like, I just want this to be the decision. I think you continue to talk about this throughout the year, because again, if John leaves, who's stepping into landscaping to do that work for you?
Mhm.
Do you have that person on your board right now?
Right. Right.
And those are the things to.
Jeremy's stepping in.
Those are big eyes.
So, I mean, I think it sounds like you want to use this year as we all kind of
Trial.
establish our new normals and see what's gonna be beneficial for you and what isn't. Certainly, by the time next year.
That's by staff. I mean, I'm a little careful to
Keep in mind,
do too much work.
And so then,
And we can handle it like we have.
so then the
handled
fee
it.
structure will be just what we're
Fine.
voting on today? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I think you guys will still need to do the scope of work. We can help type up what you guys kind of put together today and send it back to you and just ask the question. We're not saying it is or isn't, but is this a reasonable scope of work for 10 hours a week? And let you guys kind of decide from there
Send that
what.
to you said?
We'll type it up and create something. We'll send it out to you guys to kind of review as a scope of work. We'll help you
So
with
you were
that.
taking these notes on what
Yep.
Phil meant and, okay.
Take a step back and just actually just think basically what we want assistance with. I mean, I think a big things would be the assistance with communicating and bringing people out there if something happens to lights or a post. I mean, I think we're kind of getting a little bit away from, we're still maintaining all the crap that we have to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's kind of, it's interesting, right? So any amount of dollars in your budget other than this 40,000 is already spent, right? Like you have projects that will spend this money. So the part that becomes laborsome for you would be, although you've done a good job of it, getting the 3 quotes, figuring out who's gonna be, making sure that's approved and doing that. If I'm still communicating with them on this, in those interim times, that 10 hours a week, but I do think Jeremy's onto something, right? Like, I don't know that you're simplifying your job at all. You're just really putting pen to paper on what you think I should be doing.
I will say though, majority of the hardest work was December. We had 1 month to get people paid before the end of the year, clear financial statements. And it was messy and it was a lot.
And I
Now
don't
that
think,
it's over, I don't see a lot of us having to do a lot of work other than our meetings.
Yeah, and that was also a lot of, past bills that hadn't been paid and all of a sudden were just kind of dumped on us. And then with the procurement policy having to be followed the way it should have been always,
Yeah,
that made it more difficult. So,
I think, like, for me personally, I don't want to put too much in your corner, but I also want to see that you guys get the money because it was already promised. At whatever rate you're already doing things without us demanding.
But I think you're thinking too much about what you think, like too much work for me or too much work for Billy. Like, this is about setting kind of your structure for how the bid operates with an outside organization to get work done. So I wouldn't worry as much about that as, about me doing too much per se. These are all the things that
I've
already
done.
been, you've already been doing.
Yeah.
So we have 1.75 staff, but we also have 2 contracted employees, that work for us through the full year. They do a lot of the promotion stuff, the website stuff. So, that stuff is gonna fall on them. It's totally fine. You guys have to decide. I'm just wanting you to think, like Jeremy said, like, are you even alleviating anything by doing this? Or are you really just itemizing finally on paper what it is that Debbie
Are
has?
you looking to get things alleviated, like?
Sean's eyes. Turn towards the camera when you make that face.
He wants to take on more, so.
What is the matter with you? You even ask me that question?
Hey, I wanna get to that point 100,000.
I think that's the main goal.
That's the goal.
I agree with Aaron, so if we wanna figure out, it's too much for you, we'll just put everything on paper, essentially, right?
Right,
What's the most important things? I think that's one of the most important things.
right.
And if it's too much, either we have to take some out of reserve or something else,
Mhm.
or we have to take some things out of it.
But the scope needs to list what will be done or what is expected. Here are the hours a week, and then any organization's gonna decide we can do all that, we can't. And I would probably include in the quote, if unable to, do all requirements, please complete a bid on what you can do. So even if Erin's like, this is unrealistic that we can do all this, she could still submit a quote that details what they can do instead of her just thinking, well, I can't even do a quote because I can't do this within these number of hours.
Well, I think one of the important things, sorry, Nikki, I'm just make this quick. First thing I wrote down is I now need to be tracking my hours for each bid individually. And so the value of having the bids either kind of have similar paths or not would be that I'll have them, by the end of this year, a much better idea of what it does take to do all of this work and really align that dollar amount with what you've been contributing for the last decade. Because that was really never clear, right? That was kind of one of the problems of like, what are we really getting for this?
As a donation and.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think, certainly, even if your scope is different and it looks different, we can see that. But by the end of the year, the goal would be like, hey, we've been doing this work for you guys for 22 years. We've finally taken the time to track how that work is broken down per your scope of work. And then we can say, really, we're spending vastly more time on North and South Barstow than we are here, or whatever the case may
But
be.
that's for your state too. If we're not paying enough and asking for too much, then we need to know what that dollar amount looks like too. I mean,
Well, and if it's not them, we're sure,
And
we're
we
sure
need,
gonna get it from
Yeah.
another organization.
and I would just say we need to be cautious that the quote, the scope of work matches as closely as possible, number of hours available, because, I think it would raise a lot of questions if we end up spending 45,000, but we did 3 separate things and the company came back saying, no, I need more money, when it should have just been an RFP from the beginning.
Well,
So that's putting an accurate, scope of work.
which is why
based
we have to
on-
omit
yeah.
these few things that are different from Julie, because we're not upfront putting that 40K.
But I think that's what Jeremy's saying, that he's not necessarily super comfortable with.
So then we go back on the motions we've made and we just do RFP.
I don't know
Would that
what
be
you
your
were saying about, I don't think you guys determined whether you wanna give your full budget to Decky to implement or not. I don't think that was ever.
I think that has to go back to the board, because I don't think they supported that at the last meeting. I don't think there was ever
But just in
a
this
vote
room,
specific.
Why don't you guys say how you feel now, and then when you go back to the full board, then you'll know, I mean. I'm hearing, I'm not saying, and I really don't care one way or another, I just need to know what I'm doing for you. Sounds like you are okay doing.
Think
yes,
that
or-
needs to be a conversation at the board meeting, being it wasn't on the agenda.
Oh,
So
But do you guys have, can they share how they feel right now?
I think we need to stick with scope of work for temporary service agreement and scope of work for administrative duties.
So with this,
Well, I guess how I feel about the administrative duties. I don't care. We got time.
I think you guys already made motions
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
cover those things, unless you decide you want to go back and unmotion
No.
a motion.
I don't want to.
First
When's
thing
your
you're gonna do to alleviate a little time is do less meetings. But we'll do that. We're gonna start there.
Yeah.
when is your next full board meeting?
I haven't completed the calendar yet.
Sure. I should probably put this on an agenda item if it's something, just to make sure we get mentioned.
Discuss scope of work with.
I would say discuss whether or not you want an outside organization to take your funds and implement, or if you want to do that piecemeal.
I think we probably have the expectation that this is gonna be a transition year.
Yes.
And that we would probably operate very similar to how we have being involved as committee chairs and stuff, but
Yeah.
I think there is an expectation that we're gonna work towards.
It's not to say that we wouldn't want to use the word or take the help or like hand over the work. I think we're too involved right now. You know, like with just having gotten off of all this procurement and all this whatever, and it's like, it's already done, you know?
Yeah.
Probably next year, I'm happy not to do that work though.
And I feel a lot of that will be easy going forward, because we're not having to go back and address a bunch of bills that hadn't been paid, some of them 4, 6, 8 months. So, and having to backtrack and do that process versus having it done up front.
If there is a strong arm against the donation of this 25,000, we'll have to do like a award in the next couple weeks.
And then we can put that on the agenda, might as well get a couple things.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, I think we're good. Do we have a minute if I adjourn this meeting? I need a motion.
If you don't adjourn it, do we have to stay? But if you do adjourn it, we don't? No.
Yes, whatever you. Jeremy, you do have to leave though, because we can't talk about landscaping.
No, I'm good. I was.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think we can talk about landscaping. The adoptive plan with Jeremy here.
Oh, I get that.
Well, yeah, because then it would be a
Then it's a
walking.
walking armchair.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I know.
So are we officially
I hope
adjourned?
you're not.
Yes, she did.